Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, Luann Nigara. Luann has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. Luann brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hey everybody, welcome to our very third episode of Design Biz Live. This is episode 3 and I am joined today by Judith Neary. Hi Judith, how are you?
Hi Luann, I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, no problem. Okay, so everybody's probably wondering, where's Corey? Like what the heck? Because we're a trio now on Design Biz Live, right? But we have been attempting to get through this monster of a topic of flat fees versus hourly. And we have, if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of Design Biz Live, the first episode was a fun episode and we just talked about, I guess we did the 10 things interior designers should know or something like that. And then we decided to tackle this flat fees and we had this whole roundabout conversation. And then we decided that in order to tackle it more effectively, that each of you should do the assessment, the self-assessment worksheet that Judith and Corey have developed. Because almost every time I would ask them the question, they'd be like, well, it depends on the answer in your assessment. And I was like, all right, let's everybody do the assessment. Let's come back. And so now we've talked it over even further and we've decided that we're going to do 2 separate shows, one with Corey and one with Judith, because they both have completely different business models. Judith is a solo and Corey has a firm in a big city in Vancouver. And so today we're going to talk about Judith's opinions and the way that we can process the information from our self-assessment. All right. Now, first of all, I want to say, I did say that I would take the self-assessment also so that I would have a basis of understanding of what you guys, what the kind of questions that Judith and Corey came up with for them. And I just want to say 2 things about my self-assessment. The first thing is it's very clear why I'm not an interior designer. Oh my God. I looked at all of these things that go into being an interior designer. I was like, yuck, 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 yuck. So hats off to all you people. And I thought that, it's amazing that I have learned in this last year and a half, the passion that all of you have for doing this. But when you list it out on paper, it is an extreme bear of a job. And I have to say, the other thing that I learned about doing the self-assessment is that I was exactly right. I can't tell you how many times in the last 25, 30 years, I've said to my husband, this designer is so incredibly talented. This designer is so, fantastic at what he or she does. And if we could just run their business part, we'd all be millionaires. And so, yes, because I scored extremely high on admin. I was like, yes, love that, love that, love that. But all that other, make a drawing, execute a drawing, check on a drawing, no, not me. So anyway, so Judith, today's show, I would love for us to get into a little bit of meat with this now, finally, okay, for interior designers that are struggling with flat fees and hourly and all this other, commission based and all this other stuff. So let's make an assumption that designers have completed this self-evaluation. What's the first thing? Do we have to first look at where we scored high, or what's the first thing that we should do? We're looking at this result.
Well, there's a couple of things, and in this process of putting the self-evaluation worksheet together, it was a journey, and we talked a little bit about it last time. And one of the tips that we gave to the listeners was, you know what, do it today, but then maybe do it in a week from now. Because how you feel about what you do today might change how you feel in a week or two, or it might change after you've completed a project or before you started, or when you're in the middle of a project. So it is a little bit of a moving target, but even though you might feel differently one week than the following week, you will see a sort of a consistent pattern on where your strengths are.
Okay.
And even if you're starting out in the business or you've been tenured in the business for a long time, you will find your strengths. Like, you are very good in admin. Most of us, in fairness, as creatives are not, because we're really focused on the creative part, and sometimes the execution part gets kind of waylaid, and it may be technical skills and so on and so forth. But one of the things I want to say about this is we have a moving target on our skill sets. In other words, they're not necessarily fixed, because as we evolve professionally through projects or through interaction with homeowners, interaction with vendors, we may find something interesting and different about our business that we didn't discover before, and might find a way to be specialized in that area.
Okay.
The other thing that's a bit challenging is our business is not static.
Right.
Our business it really is unpredictable. The client's unpredictable. The projects sometimes are unpredictable. So it's always a moving target. So having some flexibility in your skill sets will help you thrive over an extended period of time.
Okay.
In other words, like, let's say a portion of the business sort of disappears and you have to amp up a skill set because the opportunity in front of you might be, hey, I'm not good at technical execution, but I have this opportunity in front of me that relies on technical execution, and I've got to really work on that skill set so that I can be part of that opportunity.
Okay. So that's what you're basically saying is take the test, take it a week or so later, because sometimes just moods, everything affect what's happening in your life. But then also to recognize that the answers of the test, the first year in business, are different than they'll be the fifth year in business, and so forth. And also that to give yourself a break. There's no expectation of being good at all these areas. I mean, that would be crazy pants. I mean, that would be insane.
Very difficult.
Yeah, right. I mean, I can't even imagine somebody. Well, I can imagine somebody having competence in a cross platform of areas, but I can't imagine somebody's innate talents and abilities being rock star in all three areas. They're completely different areas. So the thing is, now, once we take this and I think it's nice that you caution everybody to take it a couple of times, and also to give themselves a little slack, basically, it sounds like, for areas that you're not as strong in. But what if somebody is, like you said, creatives are mostly going to be high performing in the areas of, execution, or in the area, what's the other area? I'm looking for my notes. The other, oh, it's
Let's see, we have
down.
Concepts,
Execution,
and administration.
Exactly. Usually I'm not on air when I'm looking for my notes.
It's okay.
So the thing is, like you said, you in your experience, you probably find that most creatives are going to rate higher in concepts or execution. But what happens? Do we talk now about when you rate high in one over another and what you do about it, or can we? All right. if you rate high in concept and execution and you don't rate high in admin, obviously you need to figure out a way to either learn that or love it or hire somebody to do it. That I know. I don't even have to ask you that, okay? Because that's the business end of it and that's the running of it. And that's the whole point of the podcast, okay?
Right.
But are we going to ignore that for this conversation? And we're going to say that either if you came up with that assessment of yourself, that you're going to lock that down in some way or shape or form, but based on that information, let's leave apart you executing, getting a good admin or being a good admin, but learning that about yourself can reveal something in relation to how you charge your fees.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because I don't want to teach everybody now how to get or be a good admin if that's where they're deficient. And I don't want to teach everybody now how to be a good executor if that's where they're deficient. I want to try and focus on the it of it and what you do when you price it.
So, well, let's talk then. So really what we're tagging or tying this to is how our skills are related to fee structures.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So there's really two methodologies here. So there are probably more than that. And I just have to say this, there are so many people out there in the industry that are experts on business models and fee structures and writing business plans and the whole analytical process of A to Z of running a business. Okay, so that's business 101, business 102, 103, so on and so forth.
Right.
Then there's my world, which is reality 101. Okay. Which is a little bit of, well, it's a lot of experience, it's a lot of life, it's, we mentioned previously, it's a dartboard, it's an astrological forecast, it's looking at my bank account going, holy crap, I need to get some money in there. So now this job is going to get charged this much. So it is somewhat an organic process or an intuitive process. It's also, yes, it has to be a measured process. And Corey's not here and he would bag on me for saying process.
Yeah, I know, right?
But there's a couple key factors that before we talk about fee structures, I just want to talk about. There's the reality of where you live.
Okay.
There's the reality of how much money you need to make in
Okay.
order to live where you live and do business the way that you would like to do business, whether it's in the trunk of your car or with a small studio storefront or virtual on the internet. Okay.
Okay.
So there's that part of it as well. There's the, and really probably the bigger issue is for me is capacity.
Okay. Good point.
It doesn't matter what I charge or how much I charge. Well, it does, but there is just a capacity as a sole proprietor that you can probably get to this much. And then beyond that, you have to add staff. You have to change your business model. Okay.
Right.
You have to,
or you have to decide that that's not your goal and your desire, and therefore you have to turn away projects.
Right. And then that becomes a fixed, I don't want to say fixed income, but you do,
Right.
in essence, you tap out your income potential just based on capacity alone.
Right.
Forget the skill sets. It just comes down to what can you physically manage.
Right.
Okay?
Manage well.
Correct. What
Right.
you can finish, and sometimes manage not so well, because you have to factor that in as well.
Right.
So now do you want to ask me a question or should I?
Right. So well, I don't know, because you might be getting to my answer, but I'm just going to say that it sounds like I'm trying to get to how we take the information from the evaluation to finding out which way of charging is best for us as a firm, as a person. And it seems like you're saying it's not only the results of your evaluation that you have to take into consideration, but you also have to take into, like you said, your location. Do you live in a remote area? Do you live in a high demographic area? What is the reality of how much you want to earn this year? Do you want to earn 50,000? You want to earn 350,000? And what is your capacity to produce projects? So
Right.
Are you lumping all of those in with the results of the evaluation and then saying, okay?
So those are the overarching things that are ultimately affect us. Okay. And like I said, there's lots of schools out there to teach you how to go through all that and
Right.
get there. What I did and what Corey did too, is after coming up with this assessment, I literally sat down and wrote out a menu of the things that I will do. And under the concepts phase, I have about 15 things listed. Same thing under the execution phase and under the administration phase. So I literally, this is what I will do. And one thing I will share is that I made a conscious choice to specialize in an area of the industry, obviously kitchen and bath.
Right.
If you're an interior designer and you have a much broader vision of what you would like to do, you may need to structure that concept phase to different elements in the whole house package. Okay. There may be consulting on exterior colors. There may be consulting on interior, so you can break it out a little bit differently. Mine is much more specific because of how I've focused my business and specialized in it.
Okay.
By creating that menu, when then I defined what I'm good at and the things that I'm efficient at, and then I defined the things I'm not so efficient at. Okay. But from that, I then attached an hourly rate. And so for each job, when I sit down and meet with a homeowner, I go through this menu and I ask them what they need me for or what they think they might need me for. And I anticipate or I guesstimate based on my interviewing process with them, what they might need. Okay. And as an example, if I have a homeowner that in the initial interview, I get a sense that they're not very good at decision making, okay, I might increase some hours in the concept phase to be able to help them make decisions. Okay, so it's really an assessment based on an interview and what I think they might need.
Okay.
So it's a little bit an organic process in that as we move through it, they might need additional services, but I have to start somewhere.
Okay. So that's an example of reading what's happening with the client in the consultation phase. And I like that. So for instance, what you're saying is a kitchen, you could line up 20 kitchens that are all, I don't know how many square feet kitchens are, 500 square feet. I have no idea. Okay. And somebody might say, a designer might say to themselves, well, a 500 square foot kitchen, 10 times out of 10 is going to take me 8 hours to do the concept phase. I'm completely making up information. Okay. But what you're saying is that that's almost never true, because even though the square footage of the kitchen is the same, the human factor, which is your term, right? The human factor comes in, and one client is very indecisive, and that same 500 square foot space is now, instead of taking 10 hours for you to do, might take you 15 hours, because it's really them putzing back and forth. Okay.
Correct.
So, okay. So what you're saying is that that's an evaluation that you make based on the interview and based on what you learn from the client. I'm curious, what was the valuation that you would make, an example based on what you learned from the assessment? So based on the assessment, say that you learned that you are really good at the concept phase. So taking the human factor out of it, is it something that you could eventually discern from the evaluation that, hey, you know what, these designing the kitchen, designing the layout, designing the shop drawings, working with the architect, doing the lighting plan, this is all my zone of genius. This is where I'm a rock star. I love this space. So the fact is, without human factor in it, what 10 other designers might take 10 hours to do, I'm going to do in 7, because when I zero in on this, I'm killing it. I'm working it. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct. So by specializing, I love the zone of genius. Okay. You know that you're really efficient at that particular phase. And so again, with the homeowner, if they're able to make decisions, or can't, whatever you anticipate, you can then, that's your sweet spot.
Right.
Okay. That's your sweet spot. Now, even though I might assess them that they will need, I have an hourly fee for that concept phase. Okay. And I assess them and create a proposal, because I practice full disclosure. I tell them, this is exactly the services that I'm going to supply you. I'm not going to hide it in a warm and fuzzy description. I'm just going to go through a line item. I'm going to tell you how many hours I think are associated with that task that's going to take us to get through that. And I'm going to attach an hourly fee to it, but I'm going to make it a fixed fee, okay, at the bottom line. Okay, so even though my internal dialogue is to get that number there is going to be an hourly rate, ultimately for this phase, it's a fixed fee.
Okay, and that's where your little flexibility is. So to use the same example, if you know that that typical project, you've had a project very much like this over and over, it should take 10 hours, but you're across the table from somebody who is not a decision maker. You're then
Correct.
in that particular, for that particular client's presentation, it's not like you have on your website, kitchen design, $5,000. It's like,
Correct.
you're right. In your mind, kitchen design is $5,000, but in the consultation, this particular person's kitchen design is $6,000 because they're going to drive me to drink the whole time through. Right.
Yes, yes.
All right. And by the way,
Oh yeah.
okay. So I like that. So what you're doing is you're saying, you can put a flat fee to it, but it's rooted in this evaluation of not only yourself, but your client.
Correct.
Okay. And then what we keep kind of scooching over is that you're also not even putting in your menu of services some of the things that you learned from your evaluation that you just have no desire whatsoever to do. Like you absolutely just
Correct.
pull it out of the process.
Right.
So give us an example of what that means.
So an example is I won't do permits.
Okay. Which is, which by the way, not to interrupt you, but by the way, if I was coming to you and wanting you to do a full demo and everything of my kitchen and renovation, I might expect that to be part of the process. So it wouldn't be, what you're saying is that typically people would think it might be come up in the discovery where they would ask you and you're just like, I hate to do it, I'm not doing it. You don't have to say all that to them. You're just like, it's not part of my process. You have to go get your own permits.
Correct.
Because you don't like it. It's a pain in the neck to go to the guy and to put the building permit and get to the, the building's owner and all that crap, right?
Yes. And in fairness, contractors, because they deal with that every single day, that's in their wheelhouse. Let them do that.
Right.
Let them do that. While we're talking about this, I want to go back to something. One of the, from the self-evaluation and defining your menu of services, okay, whether you're been in the industry a month or 30 years or 40 years or however long, one thing that's very, very important is when you define your menu and you put your fee structure to it and you start having a conversation with the homeowner, you have to sell and speak to it with confidence. Right. You cannot have a blip in your presentation explaining your fees or how you structure it. Because and if you have to practice and put your phone up and record it or practice in front of somebody, because if you can't speak to it with confidence, then the homeowner knows that and then they'll question you.
Right. They'll attack it. They'll try and pick it apart.
They'll know it. Right from the get-go.
Yeah, I remember Darcy Heather's episode back in the spring, summer of 2017. She described how her and 3 of her designer friends got together for a mastermind weekend, basically like a retreat weekend, the 4 of them, and they actually practiced presenting each other with their proposals, and she said the role play was amazing. And so it's something that I agree with you that you have to lock it down. You have to present it with confidence, because as soon as they hear that, like for example, your thing with the building permit, and it's I don't really want to do the building. I don't include it, but then it's like, well, why don't you include it? It's like, I don't do it.
Right.
I don't do it. It's not open for negotiation.
Right.
Okay. So, all right. So now, are you able to speak a little more broadly for addressing designers that are full service? Okay. So for instance, you're narrowed down into kitchen and bath, which I think is great to niche down. But for somebody that is full service, think about, they come up with this. And do you think that you find that most designers are going to score high? Are they mostly going to score highest in concept, execution, or admin? Is there one that typically, or is it really divided a lot?
You'll find there is an incredible blend of designers out there where they have a lot of left brain and right brain activity, and they've been able to balance it. So the analytical part for the execution and the back end administration, they have a lot of strengths in that.
Okay.
Other designers may be great in concepts, but need to have backup with a technical piece of it.
So let's talk about that for a second. So let's say for the group of designers that did this and the concept was their, zone of genius, right? The things that happen in execution are, meeting with the contractor and making those drawings for the contractor and all those things, whether we're doing full design or not, right? It's all of that stuff. So when you're a solo and you have those areas that you're not as efficient in,
Yeah.
what does that mean, Judith? Does that mean that they should not attach a flat fee to that, or they should think about attaching a flat fee, or how does, let's make an assumption that execution is your low point on your evaluation. What does that say to us?
Well, let me give you an example here. So, because we actually asked like 3 questions in there. So let me go back and capture one of them.
Okay.
Because you also asked about a full service design firm.
Right.
Okay. And I don't want to dismiss that, because really a full service design firm, that's a huge value in today's industry with so much going on all over the place. But let's talk for a second about concepts, execution, and administration, 3 phases. So under the execution on my menu, it's all about the detailed drawings. In other words, I have to do a reflected ceiling plan. I've got to do tile details. I have to do a lot of back-end structural things so that the contractor knows what, in fact, we're building. So let's say I have a project, a homeowner that comes in, and we don't have a contractor that's been identified. And I go through the menu with them, and I set up my proposal. Because the contractor is not identified, I'm going to anticipate, and I'm pointing to my screen over here as reference. I know you guys can't see it, but just to keep me on task. But I know under the execution phase, because we don't have a contractor identified, I need to anticipate putting together a pretty technical package with a lot of details to hand it off. Okay, so either the project's going to get bid by other contractors, or we have to interview contractors, but we have to have a lot of detail to it. Okay. Contractor not identified. Now, flip side, I have a project and I know who the contractor is, and it happens to be my favorite contractor, and we've done lots of projects together. I know that I can spend a lot of time in the concepts. I have to do literally almost nothing for the technical detail and execution, because it involves blue tape and Post-it notes on the job site. Okay. So this becomes my technical drawings for the execution phase with my favorite contractor. Okay. The administration phase, in other words, boots on the ground. I'm there when the countertop's going in, when the cabinets are going in. I know that with this contractor, that's what he likes. So I'm going to spend a lot more time on the back end and a lot more time on the front end, and I don't have to do a lot of technical drawings in between. Favorite job ever.
Right. Exactly. Right. I can imagine that. Now, and the thing is, in talking with the client, and again, in that where we just described a moment ago, and being confident and expressing how the contract is going to look and what it's going to be, it's not like you're going to say to that potential client, well, there's a lot more money I need to build into the execution phase because we don't know who the contractor is. You don't go down that whole road. It's just that if it's not been identified, then you just know that you're adding and attaching more fees to that phase of the project, correct? I mean,
well, and you said it correct. There's a way that you communicate it, and I will say to the homeowner, because we have not identified a contractor as part of this project, and you want to interview several contractors as part of this process, then we are going to need to have much more technical information on the front end to make sure that you are getting the correct information from all 3 contractors.
Okay, that makes sense. In that regard, I understand why it is important to express that to the potential client, because that's valuable to them. They know that you're going to provide them documents that enable them to get 3 prices and accurate apples to apples pricing. Okay, so, but do you ever say, and by the way, my guy's available, and we, him and me, we're Mutt and Jeff, we work together, and that whole middle section becomes less expensive. Does that feel icky to say that because then they think you have, monetary reason for doing it? Or is it just a matter of being authentic? It's actually is just true and that's the way it is. Or what do you do with that?
I just tell them, because it's interesting, because again, I'm in a closed community. I'm in this weird little bubble, and
Right.
everybody knows everybody else. And so homeowners will come in and ask, well, do you have contractors that you work with? And I say, yes, I have a couple of my favorites, and they show up, and that's why I like them.
Right.
And they're like, we want them because no one else shows up.
Right. Okay.
But I also explain to them the differences in the different contractors. But in fairness, because you have a really valid point, and not everybody may have an established relationship with a contractor, and so that they have this constant repeat connection. And they have homeowners coming in and bringing their own contractor. So I'll say to a homeowner, very in fairness, it's like, I've not worked with this contractor, and I don't know if it's going to be an easy relationship or a hard relationship, but I am working on your behalf. So I want to make sure that whatever information we have to compile from the beginning to make sure that the job goes correctly, that, that's addressed at the beginning rather than trying to figure it out on the end.
Right. Okay. I like it. And the thing is, we've talked a lot on the show about the value of developing solid relationships with vendors for exactly these reasons, because it becomes a level of shorthand between the two of you on what to do and how to do it. I mean, not that you aren't always responsible for your details and for executing good work orders and all of that stuff, but a lot does happen just because it's happened every time that way. And
Correct.
that becomes, the responsibility of a good vendor to remember that and apply that on every project, if it's a detail that you like on every project or whatever it might be.
Correct.
Okay. So, all right. So
I've got one.
Okay, good.
Okay. So let's go back to fees for a second.
Yes, please.
Okay. Because that's really the conversation here. So by going through the menu and establishing my skill sets, I did attach an hourly fee there, because let's face it, in the industry, there's sort of an average or an expectation of a professional on what you should be charging. You can shop attorneys, but you're anywhere from $300 to $1,000 to $1,500 an hour. Okay. So there is a little bit of a industry expectation about what a professional designer should be charging on an hourly rate. Homeowners want hourly rates because they think, okay, well then, I don't know that, I'm going to back that up. I don't know that homeowners want hourly rates. Okay. Oftentimes today, what I'm experiencing is they just want to know how much it costs.
It's going to cost.
Okay.
Right.
And so even though I use an hourly fee to get to an estimate on what I think the homeowner is going to need, I don't like to do hourly fees because I don't want to keep track of my time. And if I have to list out on an hourly sheet what I did, and I have to explain that it took me half an hour to craft an email to psycho client, I don't want to have to list that it took me half an hour to format an email to solve a problem, right?
Right.
So yes, hourly rates are good, but don't disclose those to the homeowners. Set it up as a fixed fee. You will need to keep track of things internally to just have a sense of things about how much time you spent. And in fairness, some jobs are going to be really easy and go forward, and other jobs are just going to blow up and you're going to go, didn't see that one coming.
Right.
And that's just the nature of the business and what's going to happen, because again, it's not predictable. We are in a completely unpredictable business environment because of the homeowner and just the economy at large. So fixed fee is really based on an hourly model, but disclosed to the homeowner as a fixed fee based on different phases.
Okay.
Now, one of your listeners had a question a while back, and what happens if the homeowner just blows through the hours that you estimated? Okay. Well, you have a contingency in your agreement that says, due to unforeseen circumstances like a homeowner going crazy, you put in a revision factor that allows for you to maybe come back and capture some fees because the homeowners derailed the project, can't make decisions. It's just, you've lost control and you need to come back and start over essentially. So that might happen.
Okay, so let's pick that apart a little bit, because I think it's one thing to say that and it's another thing to do it. So let's just say that you have done your due diligence. You are designing a room that as a living room or a master bedroom. It normally takes you 4 hours in concept and 6 hours in execution. Oh my God, that's ridiculous. 4 hours, 10 hours in concept and 50 hours in execution and another 20 hours in admin. I have no idea, right? And then though, in the initial consultation, you are sitting with somebody that you do anticipate is indecisive. And so you pad every single one of those. And when I say pad, I don't mean it in a negative way. You understand that you're going to spend more time in each one of those phases, and therefore you need to make more money. But it actually goes further than that. And so you feel like you've added X amount of percentage of hours to each phase. The client has not. And here's what I want to say, and this is why I really love to hear your answer on this, because it's exactly this client that is the one that is so unaware that they're racking up the hours is the exact client that's going to complain about that. It's rarely going to be the person that's like, I know I called you 15 times this week and I'm only supposed to call you twice, but no bad. You know what I mean? Like, so it could be in your contract, but what about actually collecting it? What about when you say to somebody, you know what, we had an agreement that we would do 20 hours this month, and this month, I just want to let you know it's only the second week of the month and you're already at 20. Do you want me to keep going or do you want me to stop? Like, is that something that you do, or how do we get really through this, Judith?
So again, some of it is you have to speak with confidence. Okay. Inside you might be going, oh my God, I hope they pay me. Okay.
Right.
Because I got to make rent this month on the studio.
Right.
And you're all tweaked out inside. Okay. But you have to be at a place of confidence that you can say to the homeowner and be in control. We've exceeded the agreement. Okay. And this is where we get into trouble with hours. So one way might, and I'll give you an example here. One way might be to set it up is that we have 3 scheduled meetings as part of this phase. And these are the decisions that need to be made at each meeting. So you've got to roadmap it for them.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to set it up ahead of time. These decisions are made at this meeting, these decisions are made at this meeting, and these decisions are made at this meeting so that we can proceed. If in those 3 meetings they can't get there and you need another 6, prior to that 3rd meeting, guess what? These are the decisions that we have to make. If you're not capable, or if we're not in a position to make those decisions and then proceed with the project, then we need to reevaluate the fee structure before we can continue.
Okay.
Too many designers go, oh, I'll do anything for you. You know what? It's okay to say, stop.
Right.
You're out of control.
Right.
I have a homeowner, and I speak to this because I have this project right now where the homeowner, God love her, they make decisions like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I was not ready for any of this. I'm not ready for someone because I've had another project where the decisions can't get made. Now I have a project where the homeowner is making decisions too quickly. And I'm like, wow, I'm not really ready for this. My internal dialogue is, oh, now what do I do? Crap, I gotta make stuff happen. Right? I'm freaking out. Right? But she makes decisions quickly, but then changes them.
Oh, okay. That's the other side of that. Yeah.
It's the other side of that. And the way I had to, when she's texting me on Sunday morning at 7:00 about changing something, I'm like, I text her back, you broke the rules. You are not allowed to break the rules. On Monday, I send her an email. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
If you make these changes, this is so part of it is kind of, you have to be strong enough inside that you can establish some boundaries and speak to it with confidence.
And Judith, did you pop out as a designer able to do that? Or is it something that you learned from years in business and having done it and having it been successful?
No, I popped out like this.
You did? Okay.
No. You know what? I've had my backside handed to me a few times.
Yeah,
Everyone has.
it's sort of like it sort of comes with the experience, right? Yeah, I would say, I mean, and there's personalities, some more than others, probably both you and I more than others probably stood in that sooner earlier because it's part of our personality. But I also do know that that conversation is completely different now in my business than it would have been 25 years ago.
Sure.
Um, and the thing is, what I have to say and what I'd love to share about this is that what's really different in that conversation is my thought process. And what it is my thought process earlier, younger, newer, was I know this is right. Because that was always my thought process. This isn't fair. You're taking advantage, yada, yada, yada. And so I would have presented it with confidence, but I would have had a level of anxiety is not the right word. I would have had a level of upsetness. I don't know what the word is. I would have had a level of resentment to the client that they did, like you said, break the rule and did this and that and the other thing. And so in my presentation of it, it would be a combination of refocusing the direction and re-getting the thing on track and fighting my urge to be mad at them about it because that's not productive. And so what I've noticed over the years and the growth and the experience brings you, and I'm sharing this because all of you will all get there one day or another, and I'm just trying to get you there sooner, is that now I'm resigned. I'm not upset about it anymore. This is the rules. This is how business is done. This is what we do. And, I'm in charge of a lot of money and product and service on your behalf. And in order for me to do it really well, it has to happen this way. You know what I mean? And so I'm not mad at them anymore. And I'm not like pleading with them anymore. It's like, this is how it gets done or it doesn't. And so I think that's a little different shift, and it's read a little differently by the client, right? It's
correct.
Yeah. It's not easy, and no one's saying it's easy, and it does come with experience. But the point is to understand that that's your goal. That's what you're going for. That's what you are striving to be, the designer who is able to express what you're worth, charge what you're worth, and collect it.
Correct.
Right.
So going back to the fee structure piece of it.
Yes.
Because there's, first of all, commercial has, if any designer has an opportunity to work in the commercial segment, okay, what you learn about fee structures, square foot, tasking, coding on how you do your tasking for commercial projects. If you ever have an opportunity to work in for a commercial design firm, I highly recommend it. The back end piece on executing a project in a commercial environment is so different than residential, but it really gives you some strengths in how you set fee structures, because it's based for the most part on square footages.
Okay.
And also fixed fees. So it's a little bit of a blend of both. In residential, if you're going to do whole house, again, recommendation, look at a business, look at it from a square foot fee structure, and break it out into concepts, administration, and execution. Concepts, execution, and administration.
Right.
And try that, and just and give yourself maybe a project that you've worked on previously, and work it out, the math, a couple of different ways. How much time did I spend on an hourly? Based on the services I provided, what did that translate to square foot wise? Okay, and then what did that translate to as a percent of project?
Okay.
So here's what I have found, is that even though I look at it from an hourly rate to establish a fee structure, I do it on a fixed fee based on the different phases of a project and how many hours I think will go into that. And then ultimately, it's a percent of project. So I'll give you an example. Homeowner needed to remodel a bath, and I think I mentioned this possibly previously on one of our recordings. Homeowner wanted to remodel a bath, took a look at it, based on the square footage, based on what was happening in the bath, what was getting moved, what wasn't getting moved. I just looked at that bath and I knew it was between $25,000 and $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I based a fixed fee on the percent of the estimated project. Okay.
Okay.
Again, this is just based on experience from
Right.
doing it for so
Yeah.
many years. What I did not see coming is the homeowner deciding to purchase a $5,000 copper tub and then all of a sudden decide to move a wall into the bedroom 18 inches. So now all of a sudden, this bath remodel that was $25,000 to $30,000 went to $45,000 to $55,000, almost $60,000. Well, I did a fixed fee. And so, you know what? I learned my lesson.
Okay. So the lesson in there, what was the lesson in there? The lesson in there was because based on, this is where experience kicked you in the butt, because based on experience, you stood there in the consultation and gave them a price, whereas you needed to do more discovery, more information gathering to find out that she or he had needs that included moving a wall, in which case you would have adjusted your fee. Like when you look back, where was the breakdown? What was your mistake?
Not so much that I made a mistake. I just did not anticipate the homeowner getting inspired by a trip to Cuba and wanting a handmade copper tub from Mexico.
Okay. So
Just didn't see it.
So the copper tub, what is that the reason the wall had to be moved, because the copper tub needed to fit? Is that the point?
Right. And then they decided that they would give up 18 inches of their master bedroom suite to accommodate this copper tub. It's just one of those things that.
But you couldn't say this, we didn't know this was going to happen, and now I have to charge more because I have to do drawings and I have to do execution on moving a wall. Like that couldn't happen?
For me at this point, I'm like, well, I had my favorite contractor.
Okay.
Okay, so I knew I didn't have to spend a lot of time redesigning or re-executing, that I could literally do it with my favorite tools.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And I went, well, I missed that one.
Okay, so you just decided to chalk it up.
I just chalked it up to I missed it. Okay.
But see, I take exception to you missed it. You didn't know that they were going to go to Cuba and get inspired. Like, how do you, like, I don't get that part.
Well, so next time I need to ask, again, so do you have any trips to foreign countries? And are you going to Italy? Because we might end up with a marble tub next time, right? I mean, but this is, so I guess where I'm going with this is, as much as we would like to control this and be dialed in and on top of it and have it go perfect, it just doesn't.
Right.
And so my inner dialogue at the time was, do I go back to them and get additional fees, or do I just get through it with my favorite contractor, and I have a homeowner that posts on Facebook, their fabulous bath, and it's spread through the community and I get the referrals.
Okay.
So for me, it was a choice about the relationship, about the potential referrals, and well, I missed that one.
Okay. Look, I don't want to belabor it, but I don't see it. I really don't. And I love you, I do. And I feel like there's something else, because you did not make a mistake. I all day long will throw money on the table when I made the mistake. If I measure your window treatments and I tell you that they should be 18 inches deep because that's going to be a great proportion in this room, and we all walk in and look at the finished product and it looks like crap. It's like, that should have been 20 inches deep, or that should have been 17 inches deep, because that looks really ridiculous. Of course, it'd have to be more than an inch off for me to think it looks ridiculous, but you know what I'm saying. And so that in that case, that's me chalking it up. I suggested that you make this thing 18 inches deep, and it should have been 24, or it should have been 16, or it should have been 12. That's me. I want my reputation clean. I want a good customer service relationship. But when somebody tells you, when you have an agreement for a scope of a project, they go on a vacation, they come back and say, let's move a wall. I don't get why, in order for you to have a good referral and feel like that this is going to be a good reflection of the relationship, that they didn't have to cover the extra work that it took you to accommodate that requirement. I really am lost.
Well, okay. So going back to your listener that suggested a contingency,
okay,
for a change in scope of work.
Okay.
I didn't have that. Am I agreeable?
Okay. See?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So really
Now I
that's
get it.
so okay. So part of it's that, but the other part of it is again, I'm in this little bubble.
Yes. No, you're in a very small community. You're on Vashon Island, just in case
Right.
anybody is new to the show and doesn't realize that. And there's what, 2,800 people on the entire island that you live on? No, 10,
11,000.
11, 10. I was going to say it's 10,000, right? 11,000 people, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's basically, like 3 high schools of people.
Pretty much.
So, okay, but no, Judith, I have to say, that satisfies me now. That was not part of what we had said. That satisfies me that you did not have a contingency clause statement in your contract. Now I'm on board, because if you came back with that client now, they'd be like, you never said this could, you would charge more if we changed our mind or whatever. 100% agree. Whether you're in a place with 400,000 people or 10,000 people, that is now reflective of your reputation and the agreements that you made. And
Yeah.
so I think that is a completely clarifying conversation. And therefore, we want to say, make sure that you have contingency clauses in your contracts.
Well, now let's go back to this, because in hindsight, yes, the contingency. Let's go back to this, because guess what? You are always learning in this.
Yes.
And if we had the same homeowner with the same problem and we knew the path was going to be the same each time, then we could have this dialed in and it would be a
Right.
no-brainer. Okay. That's not the case. Okay? I joke that humans are involved, right? Well, now my new line is humans are involved, and some of them are not going to pass drug testing. And that includes the clients. Okay. So,
You're
so for me, what works really well, and I've learned a lot in this process, in conversations with you, and in just going through this self-assessment and working with the clients. So there's sort of 3 or 4 things I'd like to recapture.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One is, it does come down to an hourly rate. You have to figure that out in some way. Okay? Then develop your menu of services. Like, what are your tasks? What are your sweet spots? What's your zone of genius? And focus on that in your proposal, and do a full disclosure. Don't hide.
Right.
Just tell them straight out what you're going to do.
Right.
And more importantly, tell them what you won't do.
Right. Agree.
Okay? Because it's about setting expectations. One of the clauses that I have in my menu, and I have the homeowner initial, is I do not argue, I don't debate, I don't fight. Okay, and I don't do permits. Okay, so don't do it. It's not part of my menu.
I love that.
Yeah. So then practice on a couple of jobs and do an evaluation. So the fee structure can be based on 3 different phases: your zone of genius, the contractor that hopefully you have a relationship with, and add a clause within your proposal that says, if this derails and we've not met the expectations, that you have an option to renegotiate before you proceed.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Before you proceed with additional services. The other part of it is, I find that in my industry, because again, I've specialized, and you can convert it to square foot pricing, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that oftentimes a percent of project as a fixed cost is a lot easier for a homeowner to budget in.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to make sure that that percent of project is usually about 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I find that that is a really doable number, and that the homeowner then, by disclosing everything that you'll do in those different phases and tying it to a percent of the project, then becomes just like the contractor. It's a fixed cost. The challenge is you have to really manage yourself in that,
Right.
to make it work.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
I know we need to end this show, but I have one question. You did a great
Okay.
summary, but I have one question. When you talk about percent of project as 10%, are you saying that if you're going to do $100,000 kitchen for somebody, your entire net take on that as a designer is $10,000? Only $10,000?
Depends on, okay, so if the kitchen remodel is a $100,000 project and your fee is 10%, as
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah.
Okay. That's $10,000. If you're, depending on what your menu of services is, that could be a really good project.
It can. Okay. That doesn't seem like
Okay.
enough money to me. I'm just saying. But I don't know. That's why I asked you.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you what's a good point about that is,
mhm.
$100,000 remodel project on a kitchen in one geographic area is going to represent something else in another geographic area.
Right. This is true. This
Okay.
is true.
East Coast, New York, you can't do a kitchen for $100,000.
Right. Okay. So
Okay.
that makes, okay. I get it.
Okay.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah.
South Dakota, you could do a kitchen and a house and build a house for $100,000.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Right. Okay. No, it's true. I think that your summary is terrific. I love it. And I think the only thing I'll add to this summary is that, we try to have a broad conversation so that everybody listening can take something away from it. But at the same time, there are many parts of this particular conversation that are egocentric or geocentric to the way your firm is. You are a solopreneur, you're a kitchen bath designer, and you're in a very small community of 11,000 people. And there are a lot of things that cross over, but you might have to like just there, tweak some of the numbers one way or another to adjust for your demographic and your geological area. How about that? Geographical area. Are you 3 layers below the earth in the geosphere? So, okay. All right. So what I think is the ultimate thing about this is what this is probably about the 6th or 7th hour that we have cumulatively discussed this topic, you and I and Corey also for all of them other than this one. And only this is the 2nd hour that's made it to air. And this is what I would have to say so far is my overriding thing that I've learned from the two of you on this is that there is no rule, that it is practically impossible to actually say, I stand here in my space as an interior designer with 25 years experience ahead of you and say, you should do your fees this way. I think what it comes down to is there are a lot of variables. There are a lot of things that are personal to you, your firm, your personality, your staff or lack of, your demographic, your geographic area. And the one final thing that I would say I find it was the big takeaway from today's conversation and all the things that you shared, Judith, is I love that you encourage people to go back and take 2 or 3 completed projects and do the exercise of what if it had been a strictly hourly project? What if it had been a strictly flat fee project? And what if it had been a strictly percentage project? And come up with that comparison. Because I think
And
that would...
square foot.
I'm sorry, square footage, right? Because
Yeah.
that to me, when you said that, I was like, oh, that's genius. Because what happens is if I'm struggling to decide if I should be flat fee or hourly or square footage, if I would do that exercise with 3 projects and find out that based on my hourly, based on what I figured my square footage is, and based on my, what I devised previously as my flat fee structure, whether I threw it with got it from a dartboard throw or not, what if I found out that 3 out of 3 projects basically would have come up with a very similar number no matter how I arrived at it? Now, what to me that says is stop worrying about it. Just figure it, just do it. Like, you don't have to then say, would I make more money if I was doing flat fee? Would I make more money if I was doing hourly? And so, and if you find out that they're completely different, then you got to look, then I think you got to look back to, well, how much is my time worth? What is my goals for earnings this year? And which one of these structures is going to help me reach that best? Okay.
Correct.
So yeah. So awesome. I love it. It's insanely complicated, but I do think we kind of like chipped away a little bit at it today, Judith. Thank you. And
well,
then,
you're welcome. And
yeah,
can I add just 3 closing comments?
sure.
Okay. So really there's 3 things here that hopefully to wrap this up for you. And to give an intro for Corey is,
Yes.
One is, don't forget to consult an astrological calendar and the alignment of the universe. Okay.
Exactly.
Second one is practice speaking with confidence.
Right.
Okay, so how you can sell yourself. And something else that we really didn't talk about is, again, depending on the geography, your demographic, your psychographic of the
Right.
homeowner that you work with, is find a way to, as part of your menu, that you align yourself to, say, a community cause. And as part of your service package that you're offering to a homeowner, say, as part of my fee structure, I take and recontribute back to the community in the form of a nonprofit or to a social service agency, because people today are looking for something that is beyond just like, here's my services, here's what I do. How are you going to contribute back?
Okay, that's
And
nice
that's something that I
suggestion.
do. That's something that I do. Again, I live in a small community. So for me, it's about the relationships. But that actually does more for your confidence building with your homeowner and your fee structure and your community and your overall business model. So make sure and include that as part of your fee structure. If you have to add something in so
Right.
that you can take it out and spread it along, that's
Right.
okay.
Right. Very, very nice. I love it. I think it's great. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have another conversation, this time with Corey. And of course, Corey has a much bigger firm and he functions he works his business is in Vancouver. So he's in a completely different demographic and has a completely different firm. And Corey also has had his employees take this assessment. So we're going to learn from Corey how he applies the information from the assessment and how it informed him what he learned when his employees took the assessment. So, all righty, Judith, it's exhausting talking about fees, I have to say. I can't wait till it's over and we can start something more fun.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, you know what I want to say to everybody? If you missed the assessment is, you can find it at www.windowworks-nj.com/designbiz, biz2, the number 2, www.windowworks-nj.com/designbiz2, and you can download the assessment and take it and see what we were talking about. All righty, everybody.
You know what? I'm sorry. Again, one last comment. You know what I would really love? I would love to hear some feedback from your listeners.
Oh, so you want them to email you?
Well, I'll tell you what, it'd be really nice is if they've done the self-assessment, they then go through the exercises of creating a menu of services and then an evaluation on how they now structure their fees.
Okay.
I would love to know what happened.
Okay. All right. Well,
it may not be something that they respond to next week, but I would love to know what happened in your business. What changed for you, what changed on how you work with clients. I mean, just I would love to know what happened.
Okay. All right. So what they can do is, if you are interested in doing that, you can send that information, that round up that evaluation, to info@windowworksnj.com. And I will make sure that I get it over to Judith and Corey, and they can take a look at it with you guys. Okay. All righty. info@windowworksnj.com. If you want to respond and share your evaluation and how you came up with your ladder of services, and www.windowworks-nj.com/designbiz2 for the evaluation itself. All righty, everybody, have an excellent day.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.